Vedanta Swami. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so today we will be discussing Bhagavad Gita 7th chapter 8th verse. Raso aham apsu kaunteya prabhasmi sasi shurayoho pranavaha sarva vedeshu shabdaha ke paurusham rishu. O son of Kunti, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun, and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and ability in man. An amazing verse. Prabhupada beautifully explains this verse. So let's try to understand from Prabhupada. So here, this chapter, we are trying to understand about the various qualities, the vastness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here the Lord himself is explaining about him, what are his abilities, what are his pervasiveness, how he pervades into everything so beautifully. There's no limit to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's why we call him Anadir Adir Govinda. So he's like, unlimited. He's expanded everywhere. So there are different aspects that he's explaining. In fact, towards the end, he will say, no, I'm just explaining a few of those things. He explains, like here, for example, he's saying, I am this, from water to the sun, he's pervading everywhere. But like this, he's giving many wonderful explanations or revelation about himself. But toward the end, he will say, these are only a few of those things which I can't explain everything about me. That actually talks about the vastness of the Lord, or the never-ending abilities of the Lord. But sometimes people tend to think of the Lord in a very cheap manner, and people sometimes even try to think and say that, so and so is God, and or this is God, that is God, these kind of things. That means we are grossly underestimating, or in another terms, we are being very cheap in our definition of God. So we need to be very, very mindful of such interpretation, and we should really be able to appreciate the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is important. Now let's look at the details within this verse. He says, "O son of Kunti, I am the taste of water." Now, if you see, as I said, the Lord earlier explained about, I am the material energy, then I am the spiritual energy, and then he also said, I am the soul. The soul also is part of my energy. He talks about inferior energy, superior energy, marginal energy, all that. Then here he is actually talking about how he further pervades into everything that is actually within each of these universes and within each of the different items which are there. And in this case, he's talking about the taste of water. If you really look at it, you can say, oh, what is there in the taste of water? Water is not like, for example, like rasagulla or, gulab jamun or anything, right? It's a thing. But then if you really understand, that is where the beauty is. Like, water does not, in one sense, if you say there is no taste in water, right? But then if you take a little bit of a salt water, you will understand actually what is good water, right? Therefore, that purity in that water, which makes us eager to drink it, right? It may not be very subtle in terms of the taste, but we will see it by its absence, right? That is the beauty. And therefore, the seawater is not something which is palatable. But then if you take a pure drinking water, like, we say there is so much of water all over the world, but 90-95% of the water is not drinkable. That's what the the scientific analysis actually say. So people struggle to get pure drinking water. And he says, I am that taste, that original taste in the water, which is so wonderful that we are eager to have that. We can't take water, whatever types of water. He says that water I am. And he's saying, I am the light of the sun and the moon. That means he is the one who energizes the sun and the moon. They may be very, very big planets, but beyond that physical body of the planet, there is one controller within that we call them the sun god, the moon god. But that person is also energized by the supreme Lord, who's the source of everything, who's the cause of everything. Even though one may see, okay, the sun god is there, the moon god is there, but he's the original source of that sun god and the moon god. And in that term, it is also the energy within that sun and the moon. And he's saying the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras, the syllable Om, it is mentioned the 3 letters in the Vedas, which is basically most of the verses starts with this 3-letter word, which is Om. And that is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then there is this mention here, he's saying, I am the sound in the ether. So we scientifically these days people are able to understand that in the space there is one sound. Right? If you go deep into the space, there is one vibration, which it is already mentioned. It is not that we have found it out now. We are trying to find out now, but this truth is already recorded in our scriptures, that there is a vibration in the cosmic, deep down into the space. So that sound, he is saying, I am that sound. And today the scientists are trying to record that sound, which can be heard in the deep space. And there is also, I don't know whether it is speculation or whether it is this one, that sound is also like Om. So that is there. And then he is saying, I am the ability in the man. So if at all any one of us think, I am a great person, we need to understand that greatness is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not that I am great. It is just that I am the ability, Krishna is saying. That means whatever ability we possess, that is actually Krishna, not us. Right, but Krishna has so mercifully manifested that ability in us. So we should be grateful for Krishna for that. So actually this in this discussion, so Prabhupada is actually explaining how the impersonalists see the whole thing versus how the personalists like us, who are actually understanding the source of that all that power be. He's trying to make that distinction. In effect, the impersonalists look at these things as the supreme, because they don't, for whatever reason, they are not able to comprehend the form of the Lord. So they are only looking at the energies of the Lord and saying that, this is Lord. In one sense, that is true, right? It's not like that is a wrong statement, because that energy and the energetic are same. We say the form, the name, the qualities, the pastimes, the energy of the Lord is not different from the Lord. In that sense, that energy or whatever you perceive as God is also God, which is what the impersonalists actually are able to see. But then, therefore, is it okay? Therefore, shall we start looking at everything as God and leave, this so focused way of looking at Krishna consciousness? Let us be also completely diluted and, look at all energies of Lord as Lord. Yes, that is Lord. There is no problem with that. But in elsewhere, you would have seen in the 2nd chapter, and where the realization of God is in 3 phases: Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti. So the Lord is actually realized in 3 different ways. The lowest form is realizing him through his energies. So which is where the impersonalists are stuck. They are not able to go forward to look at the Lord in his personalized feature as Paramatma, and further seeing the Lord in his actual form, which is completely away from where the energy is functioning. The energy may be functioning here, but the source of that energy is sitting elsewhere. While that energy is also him, that is okay, but we perceive him not simply as only the energy, but we respect that energy, saying, oh Lord, here Prabhupada explains that beautifully. He says, one who sees, oh, this is taste of water is God. The impersonalists think like that the taste is actually God, but the personalists actually think that is this taste is so beautiful, this energy of Lord is so beautiful, and therefore we thank, oh, the Lord who is Bhagavan, who has a personal feature. We worship that personal feature and thank that personal feature, and then thanks for giving us such wonderful water. Which basically is energy. So thanks for giving us your energy. That is the way the personalists try to perceive these things. So, but in one sense, these two are not different, and therefore, sometimes there is always this contradiction or this fight which is happening. That the impersonalists and personalists, right? People immediately first and they don't know who they are. Like Aham Brahmasmi, we don't even know who we are. But we go to that ultimate point. Oh, Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. You're saying no, it's everything is Krishna, everything is God, everything. Those kind of a discussion we immediately get into, right? But then that is at the higher most level. The first point is to understand who we are, and then but at some point in time, this diversion happens. But let it be. But even that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was trying to put an end to that, because while that is true, that everything is Lord, everything, the energy of the Lord is not different from him. But at the same time, he also has a perfect spiritual or a physical form, which is actually the highest potency of the Lord, that he has this wonderful form from which everything emanates. So to balance that, or to say that tattva means that is the reality, right? Tattva means reality. So he says the reality is achintya. Achintya means inconceivable, that one you cannot conceive how it can be, inconceivable. Achintya, Beda means different. Abeda means non-different. Tattva. That means he's trying to, Tattva means the truth. So he's trying to explain, it is a fact that the Lord is simultaneously different and one. That means different means, as Bhagavan, he is separately elsewhere. He has got nothing to do with this material world, for example. He retains his originality as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is at one side. Simultaneously, he is also present here in this material world, in everything that we see. That is that difference as well as non-difference. That means he's away and at the same time he's within. These two things. But then how can that be? How can you be here as well as in elsewhere, right? If I can do it, right, why can't the Lord do it? Like I am sitting right now in Rajarajeshwari Nagar in one corner near a forest, while actually I am currently present in most of your homes or wherever you are seeing this video from. If that is possible for a simple human being, why can't it not be possible for the Supreme Personality of Godhead? He can be present physically, but the fact remains, he's elsewhere sitting personally in his original form. But it is not like, we can actually be present in that. When I am there in the TV screen, I really do not know what is in front of the TV screen. This is the limitation of man. But the Lord can actually also be physically present in that sense. He will know exactly what is that which is there in front of the TV or behind the TV, for example, also. So that is, but I took this example to put a very small thing to say how these things are possible, while we ourselves are trying to make it happen. How can it not be possible for the Supreme Personality of Godhead? That's where we are actually trying to think of Lord in a very cheap manner. So these things are inconceivable for our limited brain, but they are very much actually possible, and it is actually happening. That is the tattva. Tattva means reality. Therefore, he is inconceivably one and different, or simultaneously one and different. And therefore, the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually reconciling this, what do you call, the impersonalist and the personalist thing. And therefore, you need to migrate to the one which is the most advanced one, right? Like just as we say, the Lord is visible in three forms. That means that the one form is the Brahmeti. Yes, he is present everywhere. But then that is not the full truth. That is partial truth. Then you go further to see the Paramatma within only. Why to look outside? I can look inside. So you see the Paramatma. That is wonderful, great. But beyond that, that Paramatma is only a reflection, or rather, he is only a a representation of that original Lord who is sitting as Bhagavan elsewhere. So you go there, then you understand him in completeness. So that is what we need to proceed to, and that is what this Vaishnava philosophy is actually trying to explain. While we understand, accept that everything is God, but we say go forward, go forward, go forward. There is something much beyond what you are actually able to understand. And that conception is that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And therefore, Prabhupada is writing, the jurisdiction of Krishna consciousness extends everywhere. We discussed that, right? You know, right from a simple, I don't know if I should call it simple, but water, to without water, we can't even sustain for a few days. So it's not simple, but nonetheless, you know, comparing that to the sun, without which life can never sustain anywhere. So water to the sun to anything and everything in between. Everywhere, and one who knows Krishna consciousness is blessed. Just imagine if you are having this knowledge, that means you are having the highest knowledge. Krishna is saying, right, in Bhagavad Gita, later he will say, this is Guhyatamam knowledge and it is Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam. That means it's the highest knowledge and it is the most secretive knowledge. And if we have this knowledge, we are the most blessed. We may think blessing means having a lot of money. Maybe blessing means having a very good physical body or a very looking beautiful. But then the ultimate, what do you call, the real blessing is to have the highest knowledge. So blessed. Those who do not know Krishna are in illusion. And so knowledge of Krishna is liberation, naturally. Like if you have knowledge, you are liberated. If you don't have, you are in illusion. That is very clearly, beautifully explained by Prabhupada. And ignorance of him is bondage. Beautiful, right? I read this without me talking in between. Those who do not know Krishna are in illusion. And so knowledge of Krishna is liberation and ignorance of him is bondage. That means ignorance of him means we can't get liberated and therefore we get caught up in this cycle of birth, death, old age and disease. Therefore simply take a Krishna consciousness, chant Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and do wonderful devotional service to that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then we are in complete knowledge, complete bliss, and in completely in peace with ourselves and with the rest of the world. With this, I will stop here. If there are any comments, questions, welcome. Hare Krishna.